This is Adam Bernard with AutoPerspectives, and welcome back for another weekly news roundup. So let's look at some of the more interesting things that happened in the auto industry over the past 7 days or so. We will start with Audi's new Q7. Believe it or not, it has been 11 years since the second generation Q7 launched. So now we are on the third generation. And this now moves to PPC. This is the premium platform combustion architecture that we saw underpinning the new A5 and the A6. So now it's under the Q7 as well. Up front, you see a very familiar looking Audi face with what seems like an even larger single frame grille. Now sporting a kind of an oversized hexagonal mesh and advanced matrix LED headlamps, so even more sophisticated than some of the other Audis that are out there right now. One cool feature is the turn signals actually project onto the ground. So not only do you see them if you're in another car, but if you're a pedestrian, you can see them project on the ground that this particular vehicle will be making a turn. Now, the new Q7 reportedly shares its sheet metal with the upcoming Q9. That is Audi's bigger SUV to compete with the BMW X7 and the Mercedes GLS that we should see a little later this summer. The new Q7 boasts a sleeker, straighter profile that gives it a little more interior space for both passengers and cargo. One nice thing is you don't see a lot of matte black trim. This is pretty much obviously an SUV. You don't need any extra adornment to remind you of that. You do get a little Macan-like blade just above the rocker panels for a little contrasting material. Out back, you get animated digital OLED tail lamps, and this is a technology that Audi has kind of been pioneering across their portfolio. So you get selectable lighting signatures and also an illuminated 4-ring logo there right in the tailgate. One cool feature, the panoramic sunroof features 9 individually controllable sections with polymer dispersed liquid crystal. This is kind of the electrochromic look. And there's 78 LEDs there as well for additional interior ambiance. The towing receiver and the connector are hidden under a removable panel for a cleaner look, because this is an SUV, so you may be towing a trailer or something else out back. One thing you'll note is that the clamshell liftgate that we've seen on the first two Q7s is gone here. You have a much more conventional setup. Under the hood is, for the US market, a 429 2.9 liter twin turbo V6. Europe gets a mild hybrid diesel only lineup, so somewhat of a disparate setup there between the US and Europe. There will be an upcoming SQ7 with a 591 horsepower 4-liter V8 twin turbo. All Q7s can now tow 7,700 pounds, so not bad for a vehicle of this size. The one thing missing from the Q7's powertrain portfolio is any sort of strong electrification. Again, mild hybrid diesels in Europe. In the US, you don't get anything, so there's no plug-in hybrid yet. So this puts them, we think, at a bit of a disadvantage to some of the newer competitors that are out there. Air suspension is optional, as is 4-wheel steering for added maneuverability. Once you get inside the Q7, it should look pretty familiar. If you've seen the other new Audi interiors of late, you get a 3-screen layout. There is a physical control for the volume. There are scroll wheels on the steering wheel, but the vent controls are, alas, virtual like a Tesla. So in order to adjust the vent, you've got to go into the screens and multiple menus. So a little less user-friendly. You won't see any piano black trim. You will see matte plastic trim, so less likely to show fingerprints, which is nicer. There's an interactive LED light strip along the base of the windshield, similar to VW's IQ light, so this will light up and help in the event of any sort of alert, or if you're making a turn left or right, it'll animate that way as well. There are cooled magnetic wireless phone chargers and multiple USB-C ports to keep you connected. And the second row now offers captain's chairs in addition to a bench seat. Among the options are a 4K resolution dash cam and what they call a 4-dimensional Bang & Olufsen stereo with speakers that vibrate the front seat bottom, so you get the full audio immersion effect. So not a lot that's amazingly new here, but given the fact that the outgoing Q7 was 11 years old, it was long overdue for replacement. This won't be a high volume model for Audi, and it's likely that the Q9 and the Q7 is going to cannibalize some sales from the Q7, but it does keep them in this space alongside vehicles like the BMW X5 and the Volvo XC90. From here, we'll go over to China, to Hongqi. Now, you might be familiar with this brand. This is China's oldest passenger car brand. It's best known for building cars for government officials, but was rebooted in 2018 under First Auto Works Group with a global strategy unveiled in 2023. This April, they sold about 20,000 vehicles in China, so they're definitely emerging from kind of the niche market that they used to be in. And what we have here is the G919, and this is chasing the current Chinese interest in aggressively off-road capable SUVs. So yes, they're kind of chasing after Hummer, among others. Hongqi tells us that the G represents the backbone of China's national car tradition. The two 9 digits refer to flagship positioning. We've seen other automakers launch high-end SUVs with a 9 in the nameplate. They indicate this is kind of a flagship model. The 1 symbolizes that this is a top-tier vehicle performance from a performance standpoint. It is a body-on-frame entry, and it's just a little smaller than a Chevy Tahoe. So, you know, when you talk about where the domestic automakers make a lot of money, we know it's in full-size trucks. And as the Chinese now are moving up market and getting into bigger vehicles, they are now getting into part of the market where traditional domestic automakers have made a lot of money. Now, we're not going to see Hongqi anytime here soon, but if the Chinese do eventually show up in the U.S. market, it looks like they are now capable of building very competitive full-size trucks. Under the skin is an 831 horsepower, 2-liter turbocharged 4-motor E-Rev. That is an extended range electric vehicle, or a series hybrid, with an EPA equivalent range of about 130 miles on pure electric power, and from 0 to 100 kilometers an hour in 4.5 seconds. So blisteringly fast, especially for a vehicle this size. The 4-motor setup means it's got software-controlled torque vectoring for better handling. There is roof-mounted LiDAR, and the off-road technology includes 3 locking differentials as well as air suspension. So clearly Hongqi is following a lot of other Chinese automakers in getting into this aggressively off-road capable vehicle, and it seems to have all the hardware to back up the claimed capability. So again, good news is not in the U.S. market yet, but as we see domestic automakers starting to sell their full-size trucks and SUVs in China, the competition there is increasing. We'll stay in China for the Maextro V800, showing what essentially is the Rolls-Royce of minivans. Now, Maextro is a new brand that's a joint venture between Huawei, the smartphone software maker, and JAC. This was launched a couple of years ago with the S800 flagship sedan. That vehicle is now the best-selling $100,000 or more sedan in China. So they've actually eclipsed the legacy brands like BMW and Porsche and Mercedes in that part of the market. This minivan picks up cues from the S800, including the vertical headlamps, essentially a grille-less front end with that giant badge out front, and the elegant disc-style wheels, as well as two-tone paint. And even though this is arguably, quote, a minivan, it's not as mini as you think it is. At 216 inches long, it is about a foot longer than a Chrysler Pacifica. So we are getting nearly into full-size van territory. Like the Hongqi, this is also an E-Rev. In this case, it has a 1.5-liter turbocharged setup with 2 electric motors and a 63 kilowatt-hour battery, putting out about 530 horsepower altogether. So a very, very powerful people mover. Estimated EPA range here is also about 130 miles when you convert it from the Chinese cycle. And a full EV version is also expected, but we don't have any specs on that yet. It features a panoramic glass roof with a sliding cover that doubles as a Rolls-Royce style starlight headliner. So lots of twinkling lights if you don't actually have the sunroof there visible. There are small lights hidden behind the door handles that illuminate the doors. You can see that in the smaller photo at the bottom. And the taillights feature thousands of tiny LEDs that can display detailed images like the Phoenix that you see in the photo there at the bottom of the screen. So luxury minivans are a really big thing in China. We've seen the minivan market here rebound a bit in the US, and we're expecting Mercedes to get there as well. But this continues to be a big opportunity for Chinese automakers to move up market with these premium people movers. From China, we will go down to Mexico to see this neat little quadricycle. The Alinea is Mexico's first homegrown automotive EV brand, and this is the Alinea Uno. It's supported by Mexico's government, and it launches in about a year. It'll be built in Mexico and is comparable to something like a Fiat Topolino or a Renault Twizy. It's got a very small 14.7 kilowatt-hour lithium iron phosphate battery, all of 17 horsepower, and a top speed at only about 31 miles an hour. So it's similar to those low-end EVs that you see in the European market. Range is about 77 miles. They don't specify what the cycle is. That's a manufacturer claim. And the battery will get fully recharged at a 220 volt outlet in about 4 hours. Almost think of this as the equivalent of the Tata Nano in Mexico. It's intended to replace both motorcycles and some of the little three-wheel taxis that you see down there as well. And it is a van. It is a 6-passenger layout. It features coach-style doors that enable easy entry and exit, even for a wheelchair. There is no airbags. There's no air conditioning, which might be a bit of a problem if you're looking for a comfortable cab. But of course, it is expected to be very affordably priced here, starting at about $8,600. If the van doesn't work for you, there's also a cargo pickup available. And Alinea claims that the operating cost is about 3 cents per kilometer. That's less than half the cost of a motorcycle taxi and about 1/5 the cost of a conventional sedan taxi. So again, affordable to buy and also affordable to operate. And if you're worried about infrastructure, Alinea says there are plans in place to open 2,000 charging stations across the country. So that's the plan, is to be able to find some place to plug it in. Staying at the low end of the market, I discussed last week some of the new vehicles that were announced during Stellantis' Investor Day, and there's one that I forgot, and that is the return of the Citroen Doshavo. This was confirmed by Stellantis as part of their new e-car strategy. The idea behind the e-car is to create something in Europe that's comparable to the K-car in Japan. Something small, very affordable, cheap to insure, perhaps a little less regulated so that the costs are cut down. The intent here is to do a $15,000 EV, in this case inspired by the original Doshavo that ran from 1948 to 1976. It's supposed to launch in 2028 with a range probably expected around 150 miles on the European cycle, so maybe the EPA equivalent of about 120 miles. A concept is supposed to be unveiled at the Paris Motor Show this fall, and it'll be built in Italy alongside a new Fiat Panda, so Fiat will also get a new e-car. Now, rumors of the Doshavo's revival have been circulating for several years, and when Renault brought back the 5 and then the 4 and then the Twingo, there were a lot of questions to Citroen about bringing back the Doshavo, and they were cagey for a while, but now it looks like they've fully embraced kind of the retro movement and the desire to bring this legendary nameplate back to life. So we'll have to wait until October in order to see what the concept looks like, and that should give us a pretty good indication of what the production version will be like in 2028. That about wraps things up for this week in the news. If you liked what you saw and heard, please subscribe and share. Visit AutoPerspectives.net to check out the blog. Look for me on LinkedIn, and I hope to see you back here in another 7 days. So long.